Hey folks, welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to show you a very interesting lens. Some of you who are into vintage lenses probably already heard about it, but I got to know it about a year ago and I was really impressed with the distinct characteristics that it gave to my images. If you like vintage lenses for the unique look, this is certainly one to try out. It may find place in your collection. And it's particularly interesting and tempting because it's so cheap. There were tons and tons of them produced for a really long time, and it's very easy to find them on eBay, and they're very cheap. This lens produces a very strong swirly bokeh, and you can snatch it from eBay from between 70 and 150 bucks. Let me introduce you to Helios 44. And 44 is not a focal length. Focal length is actually 58 millimeters, f2 aperture. 44 is the name of the model, and then they had a bunch of them. I think they had 40 and some other models. But this one is particularly interesting. Now, this is an old Soviet lens that was produced for a really long time. And you certainly are not getting it for a clinical sharp images. At f8 5.6 it gives it reasonably sharp images with some vignette and some blurriness in the corners. At f2 it's certainly not sharp, and there'll be very strong vignette and very blurry outside of the middle circle of the lens. But that's the exact look that you're going for with this lens. The history of this lens is actually quite interesting. According to the rumors, Soviet Union got their hands on the design of Carl Zeiss Biotar lenses in Germany in the end of Second World War, and they came up with their own interpretation of these designs, but the Helios lens inherited the swirly bokeh from Carl Zeiss lenses. And the lens was produced from 1958 to 1990s, late 90s, I think 99 was the last year. And the most common mount was M42, and it was basically a stock lens for a famous Soviet camera system, Zenit. Basically, it was one of the most popular lenses among Soviet photographers. The M42 adapters are very easy to find. On eBay, actually, a lot of these lenses are sold with adapters for certain systems. I have an adapter for Fuji X and GFX systems. Because this lens was produced for such an extended period of time, there were a couple variations of this lens. Soviet engineers made some changes, were trying to improve the design throughout the years. And if you want to get one for yourself from eBay, there are a couple of things that you should be aware of. As Soviet Union history progressed from winning the war and being one of the most powerful countries in the world towards its collapse in 1991, the production was getting worse and worse. Lenses that were produced in the early years have usually much better reputation and much better quality than the late models. There were 3 factories that were producing these lenses. In the beginning, the factory that was producing was called KMZ, and then an MMZ. Then they started producing it on Valdai. So the most desirable lenses on eBay are from KMZ. However, when you are looking up these photographs of these lenses on eBay, some of the sellers, they sell so many items that they have a mix of these lenses from different factories and different years. So I recommend you to reach out to the seller on eBay and make sure that you are getting the lens that is on the photograph. And the way that you distinguish the lenses from different factories, they had the unique logos. Every factory had its own logo. And so I'm going to show you which one you want to get. This is the KMZ logo. So if you find that logo on the lens on eBay, reach out to the seller and ask them, is it the exact model that you're going to get? And maybe ask them that you have a preference of which one. So they usually just send whichever you want. So this way I ended up with 3 lenses. First, I got one, I thought that I would get it, the one on the photograph with the KMZ logo, but I got sent a Voldy. And the seller said, well, you should have told me that you wanted the KMZ and I would have sent it to you. Then I got the one from KMZ, and then I found another interesting variation of this lens. People actually use them for video a lot, and there's a fake anamorphic mod that people do with it. So they put like an oval shape inside to change the bokeh even more, and then the string to produce the highlight, kind of like an anamorphic lens. It's not really anamorphic lens, of course, but it creates a little bit even more interesting, distinct look with the bokeh, even than the original Helios. So I have 3 variations of them. When you're looking at the images of these lenses on eBay, make sure that they don't have oil on their blades. Some of the models were famous for having greasy aperture blades, and then they can get stuck and they don't move very well. So you don't want any oil on the blades. It's pretty easy to find very clean Helios lenses on eBay. On the bright side, these lenses are pretty easy to fix. So if you are into camera mechanics and you don't hesitate to disassemble a lens, you can get one and clean it, and I don't think there should be a huge problem. The variation of the lens that I use the most is the KMZ, the older model. And when I got it from eBay, I actually didn't know that the aperture on this item was declicked. Hey folks, Konstantin the editor here. Now when I'm watching the video and editing it, I actually want to clarify a couple of things here. I had to dive deep a little bit, and I realized that I messed up the producer of my lens. That I said that it's a KMZ, but it's actually MMZ. And you can see that's a logo of the MMZ here. But it's still more desirable than Voldy. KMZ or MMZ are both, I think, fine. And upon using it for over a year, I can say that the quality of the lens is pretty good. It feels nice built. I had to dive a little bit deeper into the online resources to understand like how come I have a declicked aperture. It seems like they had a model that had a declicked aperture, which still doesn't explain why my particular item has the aperture ring reversed. So when it says f2 is actually the smallest aperture. But maybe a poor CLI if somebody assembled it in the wrong way. It doesn't really affect the performance from my perspective. And one piece of advice that I thought about when I was doing that, which I didn't give in the original video, is that if you're looking at the photographs of these lenses on eBay, don't trust the lens caps. Like I have 2 Voldy lenses that came with a logo of KMZ, but actually if you look at it, the logo on the front of the lens is Voldy and says Zenit. And so look at the front of the lens. It also has information about the particular modification. It's a 44M modification 4. So it's a much more new model. This older one that I have, it says in Russian, Helios, says 44.2. So in general, again, try to avoid Voldy lenses and try to get the older ones, and KMZ or MMZ both are fine. Just also maybe pay attention to the features. If you like clicked aperture or you want a declicked aperture, then you need to search for particular models. And that's basically it. Just try to choose the one that doesn't have a lot of signs of use and doesn't have the oil on the aperture blade. So back to the original video. I have another variation from the Valdai factory, which has a clicked aperture. So if you are shooting, for example, with manual cameras, with film cameras, you probably want to get the lens with a clicked aperture. In my item, the strange thing as well is that the aperture ring is reversed. So if I wanted to calculate an exposure myself, I wouldn't be able to use this lens. So I use it with digital cameras, mostly with GFX, and here's how it looks on the GFX adapter. It's actually pretty compact lens, 58 millimeters f2. It gets a little bit closer to 50 millimeters on GFX with the bigger sensor, and it gets slightly telephoto with the Fujifilm X lineup with the crop sensor. It covers the full frame, obviously, because it was made for full frame, but it covers the GFX sensor just fine, but with significant vignetting, obviously, and some lack of sharpness in the edges for sure. Depending on what you're shooting, right? You're going for that look. If you have a subject in the middle, it will be sharp in the contrast, on contrast with the edges and with the blur around it. It will look sharp. It's not going to be clinically sharp. If you zoom in 200%, you'll see that it's very blurry and has a lot of glow. But that's the look that you're going for with this lens. I got particularly hooked by this lens when I tried it with GFX, shooting some environmental photographs where I have a foreground and background. And what I noticed is that with shooting wide open, with the strong blur in the around the center of the image, it creates a perception of a large format photograph. I'll show you the example of the image that really got me thinking, like, oh wow, it actually could be 4x5 large format photograph. And so it creates this illusion while you're shooting a digital camera. So I think that's very cool. And it's specifically pronounced with GFX because the sensor is bigger than the full frame and the edges are even more blurred and there's even stronger vignette. But I think it's a very cool companion for the GFX camera. I don't think it can be your main lens, but as an effect lens to achieve a certain look, maybe for portraits, it would be a very interesting option because you would put the person in the middle, and environmental portrait might be even more interesting to create this large format photography look. Actually, let's get in front of the computer and I will show you some examples of the photographs that I made with this lens. Okay, so let's look at a couple examples. Here's the image that reminded me of large format photography the most. This was taken in Eastern Washington, and there was this cool old bus. And I took this shot at f2, and you can see that even in the center of the image, it's kind of soft if you zoom 200%, right? But looking far away, because everything around it is even more blurred, then it looks sharp. It's okay at 100%, but if you look in the corners, there's so much blur going on, and out of focus bokeh is a little bit strange. So it creates this feeling that it's a really large format shot, and it isolates the subject very well, and even makes a little bit of an illusion. Maybe it's like a really small toy in the field. Like it definitely looks strange and interesting. Here's another angle of the same and some objects in front. If you zoom 200%, you can see it's a little bit, looks a little bit sharper here. Maybe I was a little bit more precise with the focus, but that's also f2. The front of the bus looks sharp, but everything is just obliterated. You can see how there's a glow and blur and the no details, of course. And it creates this illusion of large format, for me at least. It's pretty strong vignette as well. This next one is a picture of the house, and you can see the same characteristics. Center is okay, it's reasonably sharp-ish, not according to the modern standards. Yeah, and I didn't mention, this is all GFX. This is all done with Fujifilm GFX 50R. On this particular example, you can see the swirly bokeh. I added some grain in the post-production, but you can see how it distorts the background. Pretty cool effect in my opinion. It's definitely distinct, like you cannot do that with a modern lens. This shot I took in Dublin. I was really trying to make a series of photographs with the double doors, and I cropped to expand format here. It's also GFX, but you can also see how in the middle it looks kind of sharp with a little bit of glow. It's certainly very low clarity, and in the corners is just absolutely nothing there. Same idea with a couple more shots. This glow creates a little bit of a dreamy look as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, folks. If you like vintage lenses, definitely check this one out. It might be a great addition to your collection, especially if you haven't tried it before. And I'm looking forward to see you next time. Thank you.